Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Horror Snob. My name's Michael James. I am the Horror Snob, and I'm here with day 2 of our milestone celebration. Just this last weekend, if you did not hear, Horror Snob hit that number that is a favorite amongst horror fans everywhere, 666. Followers on Instagram, and the very next day, subscribers on YouTube. So in celebration, I had promised 2 days of possession and exorcism films to fulfill every dark, deep desire you had about this subgenre of horror. If you missed day 1 at all, we already ran down top 5 forgotten favorites when it comes to possession films. Available on the board for you right now. You can check it out by clicking the link provided above. For part 2 of our celebration, today I'll be running down top 5 forgotten favorites of exorcism films. What's the difference, you might ask? Why have 2 separate categories? Well, first off, there's got to be 100+ movies out there, maybe more, several hundreds of movies out there that involve exorcism and possessions in some varying way. But when you really dig down deep into it, you find that not every possession film focuses around an exorcism, and on the rarest of occasions, not every exorcism film has to do with a possession. So, possessions in one group, movies that might have had an exorcism in it, but it was not the focal point. Day 1, day 2, today, the exorcism is the thing for the most part. It's the unifying factor between all these films, but more than that, 4 of the 5 of them are inspired or based on true stories, ramping up just how freaky these things honestly are. So without any further ado, I want to dive right in the list. Let's get into it with number 5, working our way up with The Rite. Directed by Michael Hofstrom, who had also worked on Escape Plan and Stephen King's 1408. This movie is the singular one of the group that technically, you got to be real specific about this, is inspired by a true story, not based on. So, getting that out the way, the story on this, if you're unfamiliar with it, really comes down to a single sentence. A young Catholic priest is being trained in the art of exorcism. Sounds simple enough, except along the way while he's learning how to figure things out, his mentor, well, he ends up having a pretty bad day. And that bad day gets a little demonic, and on down the rabbit hole we go. An all-star cast in this one with Anthony Hopkins taking the lead role, Alice Braga, Toby Jones, and Rutger Hauer. A phenomenal group on screen altogether, led by 2 icons in Anthony Hopkins and Rutger Hauer. An absolute can't-miss movie that is a solid scarefest. If somehow you bypassed this film, you were sleeping your way through the early 2000s, take a moment and check it out. Available video on demand right now. It should be a priority watch. At number 4, it's Deliver Us from Evil. This is one of them that's based on a true story, and I have to say, a pretty dark one at that. Directed by Scott Derrickson, dude who's worked on several movies, and in fact, he's going to pop up on this list again later on. Some of his catalog include both the Sinister movies 1 and 2, and Doctor Strange. An all-star cast in this one, and you know what? Come to think of it, all but one of these movies really is an all-star cast. With this one, we're talking about people like Eric Bana, Olivia Munn, Edgar Ramirez, Chris Coy, Sean Harris, and Joel McHale. A rather eclectic group if you take a moment to think about what kind of movies you typically see Olivia Munn and Joel McHale work on. This thing is way outside the realm of their norm. A very dark, deep, very disturbing horror film with a lot of the grit and grime reminiscent of the Sinister movies, and more than that even, I would even go so far as to say things like Seven. The whole thing, if you're unfamiliar with it, revolves around a homicide detective played by Eric Bana, who all of a sudden finds himself deep diving into the world of possessions and exorcisms. He's getting a crash course on what reality really is behind the reality that he knows it to be. Beautifully done so that he's discovering things as his reality is changing, so is ours. A great film that really sticks with you. And one that when you take a moment to think about this being based on a true story, even if just a small portion of it is reality, this is wholly fucked up territory we're rolling into. Another one that should be a priority film on your watch if you have not seen it. Also available video on demand right now. Take the time to check it out. At number 3, it's The Last Exorcism. Now, this is the only one to my knowledge that isn't inspired or based on a true story, and given how it ends, I damn well hope not. This is also the only one on this list that is told and shot in that whole first-person found footage kind of way. Now, that's not to say it's the only one of its kind. There are other exorcism or possession type movies that are shot in that paranormal activity, Blair Witch kind of style, things like the Vatican tapes, Devil's Due, but they don't even come close to comparing to the success of what The Last Exorcism is. With a perfectly worked marriage between how the movie is shot and the story justifying how it was shot, this whole thing follows a minister who's having a bit of a crisis of faith, an exorcist on his last mission to help out a young girl who is suffering in a bad way, and her suffering is way outside the scope of what he is able to work on or deal with. A great movie directed by Daniel Stamm, produced by Eli Roth, but the true standout of this thing is Ashley Bell, who with the way she moves and acts and bends pulls off one of the greatest feats in cinematic history, making us believe that possession is real. A phenomenal job on her part, a great movie, a priority watch, and one that's available right now on HBO and HBO Max. Go and check it out. At number 2, it's Scott Derrickson's second film on this list, a personal favorite of mine and one I talked about just recently as part of the Horror Snob Hall of Fame. Talking about The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Another one based on a true story, and that fact should scare the absolute shit out of you given what goes on in this film. Another one that is an all-star kind of cast with people like Laura Linney, Tom Wilkinson, Colm Feore, and Jennifer Carpenter. And again, like Ashley Bell from The Last Exorcism, Jennifer Carpenter is that rare occasion where her portrayal of a young lady possessed is so believable that it just makes your skin crawl. Award-winning performance as far as I'm concerned from both of those ladies, and the major reason why both of these films are considered top 5 favorites in the realm of exorcism-type horror films. What makes it a little bit unique from the rest of the group is the way it balances sort of this law and order type situation while also giving us information past and present, a little bit of that Memento style thing, bouncing back and forth. All completely justified, never losing its focus, keeping us consistent on our course and scaring the shit out of us all along the way. A fantastic film that's currently available on Starz. If you have not seen it, make it a priority. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Hey gang, before we finish up today's episode, just a quick reminder to check out the website, horrorsnob.com. You can find a full archive of everything I've put out thus far, some truly awesome novelty items, and absolutely rare horror memorabilia authentically autographed by dudes like Sid Haig, John Carpenter, and Bela Lugosi. All available for you at horrorsnob.com. And now let's get back into it. And lastly, at number 1, the movie that probably has the least to do with exorcism, though it does finish that way and finish strong, but it is such a solid film, it had to be number 1 on this list, The Conjuring. Based on a true story, yet again, on people we as horror fans are all very familiar with, maybe the most famous ghost hunters of all time, if you want to think of them that way, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Several movies since, based off this singular one, it has created its own little universe, splitting off into things like Annabelle, The Nun, and we have a third Conjuring movie coming up very shortly. With an all-star cast like all the rest, Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, Ron Livingston, Lily Taylor, and Joey King, this is the thing that set all the rest in motion, and of course, like Demonic, which we talked about in our group of 5 possession films, directed by James Wan, a mastermind when it comes to horror films, whose work includes the Insidious series and Saw. This guy doesn't just make horror films, he makes horror universes. A great film that is as scary as it gets, and though I have called each of these a priority watch, if you only watch one movie on this list, this is the one. available for your streaming pleasure, as well as its sequel, number 2, on HBO and HBO Max, as they get ready for the release of number 3. Go and check it out. All right, that's it for me today. As always, I invite you to take a moment, hit that subscribe button and the bell, stay up to date with all the reviews, previews, rankings, and trailers I pump out on a regular basis. And as for our Horror Snob Hall of Fame challenge of the day, just like last time with our possession films, I invite you to challenge me on this list. Tell me any one movie not listed in this top 5 that you believe belongs and what movie it should supplant. And of course, since we're going with top 5 films in exorcisms not named Exorcist, I would really appreciate it if The Exorcist wasn't the one you're recommending. Put your comments in the section down below, and remember to be a subscriber of ours on YouTube and a follower of ours on either Facebook or Instagram to have a shot at this week's prize, the Church of Horror poster featuring all of our favorite baddies of all time. My name's Michael James. I am the Horror Snob. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.